Fucking every hole. Fucking every hole. Fucking every hole.
There it is.
Tell me your name, where you're from.
Nate Sexton, Eugene, Oregon.
Nice shot, Nate.
Production and distribution of Disc Golf Live is made possible through the generous support of our underwriters. Thanks for your support. We'll start this episode with a trip aboard the Disc Golf Wayback Machine. From deep in our archives, we've got footage which offers us the chance to take a look at the effect time has had on one disc golf course and get a glimpse of some disc golf deities during an earlier era.
We set our Wayback Machine to 1997. Just about the oldest content in our archive. We find ourselves at Hudson Mills Metro Park, just outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan, during the Great Lakes Open. This tourney was put on by the Ann Arbor Area Disc-Induced Sports Club, a dedicated group of local enthusiasts who helped to develop this complex and continue to work on course development to this day. This VHS material was taken by our pal Rick Allen, who captured parts of all 3 rounds of the Great Lakes Open, as well as the final 9 and some between rounds scenes. We'll be able to show a few then and now shots to see how holes have changed through the years. We can also catch a glimpse of some present-day players a dozen years ago, as well as some top caliber players no longer playing. The most notable individual we'll see in that regard has to be Scott Stokely, a tall, lanky player equipped with cannons both forehand and backhand. Rick caught a brief interview with Scott between rounds. Here's what Scott had to say.
17 years ago, I'm one of the fortunate few who is playing for a living. Touring around the country with my girlfriend. I currently have the world distance record at just over 200 meters.
Tell us that in English too.
In English?
600 and what?
200 metric
okay.
yards.
All right.
656 feet.
Great.
2.4 inches.
That's one hell of a record, Mr. Stokely.
Thank you. It's in the Guinness Book.
That's great. And what's your favorite type of throw? I've seen you do the sidearm.
I like the big, long backhand throws. I like the long holes.
Excellent.
But
wow.
I actually enjoy putting a lot too. So it all comes down to.
Yeah, it certainly does. I agree there.
You know, if you putt 22 times at an 18-hole round, you win.
So you've been playing just disc golf, making a living off of it for 17 years?
No, for 4 years.
For 4 years. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Well, good luck to you today, sir.
Yeah, this is it, sir. This is our farewell tour.
Hey, thanks a lot for your time.
Sure.
We'll start our time study out on the Monster Course at a place affectionately called Malfunction Junction. If your wheels are going to come off, it's likely to happen at either of the 2 holes which tee off from this area. Knowing that Rick would be out with his camera, we had installed a tower on a small bluff offering a view of both tees. This is hole A, or the A hole as some call it, the start of a 6-hole loop, which expands the course to 24 holes. We list them alphabetically on the card, so the last hole on the course is still number 18. At this point in time, the Monster was still a very young course, created just a year earlier. Neither set of tee pads had yet been poured. You can see the amateur tee markers about 150 feet down the fairway. This course was added to the park after 4 or so years of steadily growing play on the original course.
Ken. Oh, that was awesome, Ken.
Back in the day, there were a few players who tried a line over the left side of the hole. The rough over on that side is pretty daunting, but so is the task of hitting this razor-thin fairway by any route. Much more common were the guys who played a big hyzer shot out to the right. These tended to be your big guns. The right side, down near the pin, was not terribly imposing, so fellows with plenty of distance seemed to favor that option. Perhaps the best shot of the day using the right side was put up by Mr. Stokely, who has plenty of distance to handle this hole.
Oh, God. All the way down, that's a fact.
Those of us without big arms and nerves of steel were left with a fairway option. As far as fairways go, this one was pretty darn tight. Nearly 500 feet of tight, in fact. So getting off the tee and into position to get near the basket after 2 was all many players ever wanted out of this hole. Turning to our modern day footage, it's easy to see that the changes in this hole over time are staggering. We don't know how long it's been since anyone tried to go around to the right, but it's been years. And the left side is equally daunting. Although we couldn't duplicate the angle of our early footage without a platform, it's clear that everyone takes the fairway option now. Moving about halfway down the fairway, past the short tee pad, we can see areas of extensive clearing done through the years to create a somewhat more receptive landing zone. It's not necessarily easy from here, but it's a lot more accommodating now than it was a dozen years ago. Swinging our camera around, we can view the players driving on the 14th, a hole simply called the Monster. At over 1,000 feet, this was one of the first mega holes out there, a challenge even for the longest arms in the game. Great advances had been made in disc technology since the game was formalized in the mid-70s, and course developers were just beginning to catch up. From the pro tee, it's just about 400 feet to the am tee, occasionally visible in the distance. Most players threw in that direction, over a few scrubby bushes. One exception was Mark Ellis, who chose a somewhat risky route out to the right, to the mown grass area along the out-of-bounds Park Road. Here's another angle of the hole, from ground level this time. Note the pair of red maples on the right side. The road is clearly visible, and the small shrubs nearby aren't much to worry about. Now let's view the same angle as it looks today. Not the same hole by any stretch of the imagination. From what seemed like pretty innocuous rough, has sprung a daunting wall of trees and shrubs. This has pretty much eliminated a swinger out to the right. This view from more directly behind the pro tee pad shows the amateur tee in the distance. We tried to get a shot of the red maples from the tee area, but that wasn't possible, at least without a crane. There's a look at that pair of red maples today. Neither the maples nor the road are visible any longer from the tee pad here on 14. And although Mark didn't get away with anything by taking the road less traveled 12 years ago, it's pretty certain he won't be heading out that way anytime soon, unless there is some pretty radical trimming done here. As an interesting historical note, during the '98 Great Lakes Open, Scott Stokely did manage to throw past the basket here and into some bushes in only 2 shots. But he ran his putt for a 3 long and ended up carding a 5. We've got to get back to the 21st century now, but later in the show, we'll dial up 1997 again and see how Mr. Stokely and friends are getting along.
Tomorrow, Marty.
For our last feature this episode, let's rejoin the crew of the Local 101 Players Union as they get the final round started at Loco IV.
We're back in Whitmore Lake, Michigan for a look at the second of 2 courses here at Independence Lake County Park. This is the picnic course, a seasonal layout that plays across a mix of open and lightly wooded terrain on the shores of Independence Lake. The tee shot on the first hole here is played from a cluster of park buildings, normally bustling with swimmers, sunbathers, and boaters during the summer months. This area is quiet during the portion of the year that the picnic course is installed. The wicked minds in charge today considered this opening hole and decided it wasn't their best choice for tourney play. Instead, they opted to start the top card of men's open players on the 7th, making number 6 the finishing hole. There's the basket on the 6th, tucked up against the water's edge, one of 3 such lakeside pin positions on the course. Daunting enough, perhaps? I think so. Even camera-loving Mike Henry couldn't match his great off-the-log shot we caught during the first round. Even when a player puts one safely on dry ground, he faces a menacing second shot towards the water. So here we are on the 7th, as the top card tees off. Mike Rayleigh leads the tourney by 2 throws. Although short, this hole is pure risk and reward. Al Shack sits in second, 2 off of Mike's pace. Also 2 behind Mike sits Tate Handy. And at 3 throws behind the leader, we find Josh Romine, the course designer behind all this mayhem. That stick probably wasn't in his plans, though. Anything but routine, approach shots on this hole are far from easy, and Josh will have a short putt for a 4 after retrieving his out-of-bounds throw. After getting a ruling from the group on where his disc most likely crossed the OB line, Tate negotiates an up and down for a bogey 4. Al does a pretty handy job of getting himself up and down for a par, which will move him into solo second place. Mike's drive ended up in the drink, but not far off the basket, and he salvages par after taking relief from the OB line. Nicely done. Moving on to number 8, it looks like the evil plan to spice up the beginning and end of this round has worked so far. Mike Rayleigh still has a 2-throw lead over Sugar Shack, but both gained a stroke on the others right out of the gate. And things didn't go any better for Tate and Josh here, as Al and Mike schooled them a bit, recording deuces despite a wind that makes just about any putt pretty tricky. There's a bit of a hike to the 9th tee, but this hole is well worth the walk. The top of the basket is just visible in the distance. Mike's drive was just a bit too low to get over the top of the hill, so it doesn't look like he'll have much of a chance to reach the basket in 2 shots. The Whitecaps pretty much sum up the wind situation. Al had the right shape, but tugged it a bit to the right. Safe is good. Although the length is a bit daunting, and the fairway not terribly wide, the real challenges on this hole come at the basket end. Nonetheless, we did get a chance to catch a wacky shot on tape. Mike's second shot gets up in the breeze and heads hard left towards the play structure, sending Kirk Hagedorn from the group up ahead running for shelter. Kirk had come over to do a little recon. It never hurts to keep an eye on the leaders. Sugar finds his line this time around and is in great shape after 2 throws. Tate found the play structure on his second and takes a run at a 3. Meanwhile, Mike has a wacky lie to deal with.
I got enough room to mark it up there.
Mike's drive came down the slide
Yeah, it's definitely low
from up there where we
I think I'd
saw it land.
Below it.
Okay.
Funny.
Mike goes with the old 1 foot on the slide stance and makes it look pretty darn easy. Child's play. The reason we like this hole so much is the pin position. There's Josh facing a fearsome upshot after going past the basket. Well done. From a similar position, Tate's 4th shot flew over the crest and down the hill. Course designers love to find features like this, and Josh made good use of this great bit of land. Sugar has a makeable putt, but he's a smart enough player to know the value of an easy 4. Tate finally throws in the white flag. Enough's enough. Steady putting is one of Mike's strengths, and this wind would give anyone pause. That's a nice 4 after riding the slide. Mike and Al both logged 4s on the 9th. They've matched scores so far this round, so Alan remains 2 behind.
That snuck in.
Mike caught a break along the edge of the parking lot, but Al's drive skipped off the downslope to land OB. With this part of the park otherwise closed down this time of year, the basket position in the middle of the parking lot isn't as odd as it might seem. Tate gets the first hint he's had of good fortune, and at least stays in bounds. All OB drives are played from this drop zone. This is Alan's 3rd shot, and Mike will be looking at a birdie putt. This putt might give Tate a bit of putting confidence, but it will take a lot of work to make up for his troubles on the previous hole. Sugar Shack has putted out for his bogey 4, so Mike is looking at a 2-throw swing if he cans this one. The 1 meter relief he gets from the OB line nudges him a bit closer to the basket. No bird this time around, but Mike does stretch his lead to 3 over Al. Leaving the leaders for a while, we've stopped in at the tee of hole 16 to catch some of the action on the undercards. This hole features a rare triple mando, in this case, the gap in the activity area wall. It takes good power off the tee to reach the building, but finesse is required to bring off the 2nd shot. Here's another look at the tee shot on number 16 from down near the gap. We scooted ahead and camped out on the 17th, a menacing downhill hole. We decided to shoot the undercards as they came through, hoping for some entertainment along the way. Pat Burke seems to have it going along nicely. Took us a moment to find the basket. It's hiding behind a tree on the left, up against the water's edge. These guys may not bring home the title, but they're having fun at least. Here's Dan Treese taking a pot shot at our local photo guy, Foz Miller. Treese was in good form otherwise, and was fashioning the top score in the field this round. We thought Peter Wingard's comments after his nice drive summed things up nicely.
Now what am I supposed to do?
What now indeed? Both wind and water can drive golfers to distraction. Today's combination is particularly wicked. Dan from out of the muck. He'd go on to make that little tester for a nice par. Pete knew he'd be facing a brutal putt. He'd already seen a putt by a fellow competitor flip-flop along the ground, tumbling a good 30 feet inland before coming to rest. At least he's dry. We scooted back to the top of the hill to catch the second card off the tee, but our timing was not great. Kirk Hagedorn had made the best shot so far off the tee, and we missed the whole thing.
Joe, I finally had a good drive and you missed it. I missed it. See it down there by the water thing?
This isn't a hole for the faint of heart, or for guys with only one putter. They were flying into the water left and right all of a sudden.
Everybody, Kirk Hagedorn apparently made his best drive of the day and missed it.
There's Luna for a well-played deuce amidst all the carnage, while Dave Beal would just like to get this one over with. Back up on the tee pad, it looks like Sugar Shack has honors now. We sneaked a peek at the card and learned Mike stretched his lead to 4 throws with a deuce on number 11.
Beautiful drive by Al Sugar Shack here in hole 17. Mike Rayleigh started the round in the lead. Don't know how it's gone the last few holes. Played solid to start.
Al got one back with his own deuce on 13, and another when Mike bogeyed the triple Mando, number 16. Mike now leads by 2.
Coming for us.
As if the wind and water aren't bad enough, this pair of trees make putting just that much more difficult. Although there are a few calmer moments, the wind seems to be picking up. Mike now leads by only 1 throw. Hiding behind that tree is Al Shack, charging now after making up 2 shots in 2 holes. This is one of the more wooded holes on this circuit, but at least there's no water involved.
Ooh, steaming.
Mike and Al both have a little work to do yet on this one. There was some chatter on this card earlier in the round, but things are getting pretty seriously quiet at this juncture. Al has to shape this birdie effort around a few obstacles, and very nearly comes up with the goods. Nice run. That's a par 3 for Mike here on number 18. He remains just 1 up over Al. Josh Romine and Tate Handy have fallen well off the pace set by the lead pair. Despite starting the round in the lead, Mike and Al are not shooting the lights out here. Shooting well enough, perhaps, but both know there's room for some action from off another card. That brings us to hole 1, and with today's shift in starting holes, these fellows have only 6 more to play. There are some OB areas on this hole, and Al seemed headed that way. With Al likely out of bounds on the left side, it seemed like Mike had gained a bit of an advantage on this hole. But it looks like he was pretty well stymied in the shoal and needs a big putt to save par. Al did indeed slip out of bounds. He has this to salvage par. Wicked tailwind putt for Mike here. These are always easy to lose on the low side. That putt had plenty of height, yet still came in low. Looks like a little more oomph might have done it. We picked up the lead group again with 3 holes left to play. A quick glance at the card showed us that Al had dropped back to 2 off Mike's pace with a bogey on number 2. This hole features a steep drop off to the lake on the left side. The path isn't out of bounds, but can lead to some monster skips. There's Josh for a scrambling par. He'd go on to card a 63 and a tie for 16th place. Al and Mike both face critical deuce putts. That was big. Al's putter has come to life to pull him within 1 throw of Mike Rayleigh with just 2 holes to play. This hole is a tough deuce. The basket is over a crest and not quite visible from the tee area. Mike's driver found its way into the shrubbery. He'll be the first to play, and that should give him a par 3. From the left side, Al will also card a 3. Tate had one last gasp for a birdie, but that about summed up his round. His 61 dropped him into a tie for 11th place overall. When the tournament organizers decided to make number 6 the finishing hole, they perhaps had just this scenario in mind. Well, maybe they hadn't expected gale force winds, but they did think this frightening hole would be well suited for a tight match. And how right they were. Al gets the job done in fine form. With a 1 throw lead to protect, there was one thing Mike couldn't do here, and that was to get wet. This one was looking all right until the bottom dropped out. And with that drive, Mike's chance at the title was washed away. This episode's ironic moment is brought to you by the course designer, Josh Romine, who gives one more away to the chilly waters of Independence Lake. Down on the beach, Al Shack takes care of business and lays one up near the basket before being congratulated by the others in the group. As these guys tap out on their last hole, there are plenty of reminders that it's not over till the last shot is in the basket. Carding rounds of 48 and 55 for 103 all day. Al sews up the title before Mike endures one final slap from Mother Nature. That one hit him right in the wallet and dropped him into solo 4th with a 2-round total of 105. From off the 3rd card, Dan Treese of Wyoming, Michigan shot the hot picnic course round, matching his first round score of 52 as he worked his way up to a tie for 2nd place. Also coming in at 104 was Kirk Luna Haganone. We've been working with Kirk on getting used to the camera, even going so far as to tape him during some practice holes. Naturally, when he faced this putt on his last hole of the tournament, a putt that would have drawn him into a tie for the lead, we had to be there to add a bit more pressure. Sorry, Luna.
That thing up so I can get a good look at that.
A few words with folks as the scorecard is totaled confirms Al's slim victory.
What? Man.
That's about all from our trip around Independence Lake. Thanks to Local 101 for a great tourney, and congrats to Al Sugar Shack for the victory.
I wasn't dominating. Mike was beating me pretty much the whole round. Just that hole, you know. That putt on 4 was really big too. You know.
Yep.
Nice new layout here, Al. What do you think?
I like it.
1 for 1? Got to come back?
Oh yeah.